So I got to a place where I was very, 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 very desperate to not marry wrong. In fact, I used to joke that except a dove lands on the man for me to see like this, I'm not going to say yes to be his girlfriend, let alone to marry him. It was a joke, but subtly I meant it. I just meant that there's no way that I would say yes to be yes to him, yes to a man if I wasn't fully persuaded without a shadow of a doubt like this that it was God's will for me, to be honest. And so that's the mindset I had. And I had always grown up loving marriage. I'd always grown up believing that marriage is one of God's greatest gifts to humanity because of the wonderful examples that I had. So there's even something that my parents prayed about for us consistently. I genuinely believed, I still obviously do believe in marriage, but I had had so many negative experiences. I had made so many wrong decisions. I had entered so much means very, very muddy grounds, basically. And so I just got to a place where, you know what, there's no way under heaven that I'll say yes to a man if it is not 100% the Lord's will, and I am fully convinced that beyond my emotions, beyond anything, beyond what anybody says, if I'm not 100% sure. And so that's the mindset I had basically when I moved to Lagos. Now, when I moved to Lagos, to my surprise, well, surprise because it was multiple people at the same time, not because I don't know I'm a catch, because I am, but I had multiple people asking me out at the same time. And there were several points where I actually liked to a reasonable degree these people. Not, oh my God, I'm in love with you, but I like them. A couple of them even checked a lot of physical boxes. And by physical, I don't even mean physical appearance. I mean things that your eyes can see and your ears that can't hear. But there were a lot of the situations where I even knew there was nothing to pray about. This is not God's will, because of things that the Lord had told me, because of things, I knew to be my purpose, and because of the word of God that I knew. There were a lot of times I didn't even pray. I just knew, based on the word of God, foundationally, this cannot be God's will. There was even a time that I genuinely liked the person to a very decent degree, but I knew that was not God's will. And so I said no. The no was from my flesh, but the no was from my spirit, rather. My flesh wanted to say yes, but my spirit said no, because, I knew that was not God's will. And after I said the no, when I was on my own, I cried. I cried because I was like, God, I like this person. If it was before, I'd have said yes, but I know this is not your will and I'm not going to do that. And it was something that I was very determined about. I was very determined. Anyways, I just remember the time that I actually even thought somebody was I genuinely thought, it's possible that this is, God's will, and I had not yet prayed about it. But I had made up my mind that before I start liking a person in an emotional way, I mean beyond liking them as a person, before I start having feelings for a person, any feelings at all that is, deeper than I like you as a friend, I'm going to pray about it. I just made up, that was the resolution I made personally, and my God, am I thankful for that resolution. So I made that decision. And so when I noticed that, I was beginning to talk about this person a lot, and I liked this person as a human being, I decided to pray about it. And the no that God gave me is the clearest no I have ever heard in my life. Which is interesting because the person is a wonderful person. The person, but that was no for, and because I just shut down everything. I even reduced, our friendship, because I knew that, this was not God's will. It doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter what I even think. But God has said no. There's nothing to do here. So, anyways, I just laid that foundation to say where I was in the points in time that the story I'm about to tell you begins. So something else that I made up my mind about when I was coming to Lagos was the church I was going to go to. It was not a decision that I sought the face of God for. It just made sense. It's a wonderful pastor, a wonderful church. I mean, very Bible-based, etc., etc. So I just thought, based on a lot of knowledge that I have about who God has called me to be and the things I believe I need to learn, this is where I would want to worship as I as I land or whatever in Lagos, and as I start working and living here, right? So before I even started, I settled down fully into work. Before I even settled down fully into where I was going to be staying, I started attending the church. I started attending midweek services, right? But after a very, very short while, I think after 2 or 3 weeks, I had even started preparing to be a worker in the church. God told me to leave the church. Now, of course, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to the people in my life. It didn't make sense to me either, to be honest. But it was an instruction that I knew without a shadow of doubt that was from the Lord. So I kind of hesitated on it because I was very cynical about many Lagos churches at the time, which, to be honest, in hindsight, is a place of ignorance. But I was very cynical about some churches, about not some, but a lot of churches around where I was living at that time. So I was just, I dilly-dallied on the instruction, but the more I dilly-dallied, the more days went by, the more the instruction intensified. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take time out to pray about this and seek the face of God about this, because I'm like, okay, God, you want me to leave this church, but you definitely want me to, be a member of a local assembly and to serve there. So where do you want me to go? Like, if I'm living here, where am I going to? Do you understand? So I started to seek the face of God about it, which is very important, about where to call my local assembly. And so I did, and God told me the church to go to. Now, this church that God told me to go to was one of the churches, which is why I mentioned ignorance at that time. One of the churches that not the Lord, one of the churches that I had been cynical about. Not because I had any actual knowledge about the place, it's just a bias from because of where I was coming from. To be honest, a very unfounded bias, I must add. So I grudgingly started going there because they had an event that was coming up, a vigil, I believe, and so a prayer vigil. So I just said, okay, this is a good excuse to my brain that, oh, this is, I'll convince myself that this is why I'm going, even though God had told me that that's exactly why I should go, right? I called one of my friends that I knew was attending there at the time, and then we went together. Immediately I even stepped in, it's like the Holy Spirit hugged me, because I've said it before to a couple of people in my life. Immediately I stepped into the church, I felt a very warm hug. I had not seen or heard anything, they had not, I just, immediately I stepped into the building, I can never forget, I felt a very warm hug. Anyways, let me start fast forwarding the story. So I think a week or 2 weeks after I started attending on Monday, on Sundays, and on midweek services on Wednesdays when I wasn't on call. And I think 2 or 3 weeks after I started attending, they started announcing for this mega singles event, an event for singles to come and mingle. That was a very lame rhyme, forgive me, but you get the point. It was a singles event that the church was hosting. Right, and so I was single and I was open to mingling. Right, so I just figured, oh yeah, I'll definitely go. And then they called for volunteers. So I don't think I started working I had not signed up to be in any workforce, so I just figured, oh, this is a good opportunity to volunteer some way, somehow. And so I volunteered for the event. Before that event, there was even one Friday night get together that we had in church for youth, and I attended. It was a very lovely event. Turns out, in hindsight, my husband was one of the panelists, but we didn't meet or talk then. And I was raising my hand up a lot to talk, so I didn't really pay attention to the people in front. But that's all in hindsight. Anyways, back to the story. So I volunteered to be a part of the volunteers. I volunteered for the mega youth event that was coming up, and so the volunteers meeting was on a Friday night, I believe. And so I was not on call, to the glory of God, and I went for the volunteers meeting. And when I got to the volunteers meeting, because I had been attending the church for maybe 1 or 2 weeks, I can't remember, it had been a short time. I had been attending the church for a short time at that time. I knew a couple of people. I'd also hosted one open meeting, one work in progress open meeting. So I think 1 or 2 people that I knew that had come for open, like I invited them from church, and they were at the volunteers meeting. They were one of the escorts or something like that. So we were talking, and he was talking to many people. So I was standing there with him, and we were talking to a couple of people. You know, when you're with someone that knows everybody, yeah, it's not like I knew the people, but I was standing with someone that did. Or I was sitting, actually, there was a table, everybody was standing. Someone was beside me, he was in front of me, and there were people around the table, and we were just all just after the volunteers meeting, we were talking. Then here comes my husband, Kutum. Here he comes. So I had this hairstyle on that he says was what got his attention. The interesting thing is that I had that hairstyle on for only that day and the next day. Why? Because it was affecting me in the hospital, it was affecting me at work. I made it the day before that volunteers meeting, and then I went to work the next day with it, I think. And it was affecting me, and that was because that was a Friday. I figured I'd just use it for the weekend, not knowing that that's the hairstyle that would even get my husband's my husband's attention. And so I carried that hairstyle, and by Monday I had changed it. He did the work, I guess. He got the attention of who he was supposed to get the attention of. I had no idea. I just really liked it, but it wasn't functional for my work. Anyways, so here comes Kotun saying that, oh, my hair got his attention. And then he walks up to me and asks our friend, well, he's our friend now. At that time, it was more of his friend. I just knew him as an acquaintance. And so I was talking to him, and he just taps um the guy that I was with, the one that I had met before. I just started, who is this? Introduce me now. And he said it in such a very confident, loud way. And I was like, what? In my mind, of course, because I was very quiet. I was just like, what? Who is this very confident, very bold person? And he's very far more confident than me, even. And he's very so I was just like, that was the person that just like, but it's like almost like he even wanted me to hear. Do you understand? I'm sure he did. I'm not even sure. I should ask him, but I feel like he did. Anyway, so and our friend goes, oh, this is already she does this, she does that, blah blah blah. And he was acting like, wow, we are just in an angel from the heavens. He didn't say that, and he wasn't overly enthusiastic. I'm joking, but he was like, you're fine. He complimented me. It is me a little bit, but we didn't talk one on one for a while because we were around people. And to be honest, I didn't think anything of this because I was around people as well. I mentioned where my head was, so I wasn't. It's not like I would see a guy and be like, "Oh my God, is this?" No, it wasn't. It wasn't that way. So I didn't think anything at all of it. And after a short while, he left. The next day, I came for the actual event that I volunteered for, and when I came, I was placed to work directly under him. It's not a coincidence, I'm sure. I don't believe in coincidences for children of God. It's not a coincidence. So I came the next day and I was placed to work directly under him. I was placed to, it was one of the youth leaders, and I was placed to serve under him. So I said it wasn't what I even noticed that even made me a bit confused was that it wasn't as friendly as the day before. And if you know my husband, I know he's friendly on behalf of two of us. He's extremely friendly, not so much for me. God is working on me. I'm not as friendly as him, but he is extremely friendly. But that day, what I noticed was I was in very serious work mode. It was like, oh, and he takes used to take. He takes when I met him, I actually thought, this person takes this serving thing very seriously. It wasn't even, it wasn't trying to banter. It wasn't making side remarks. It was very serious. He just told me where to stay, what to do, yada yada yada. He wasn't even acting like, oh, just the night before he had called me very beautiful and all that. There was nothing like that. I just thought, oh, maybe he's very serious about this. He's leading this thing. Not it's not trying to be friendly. I just said okay, no problem. Because me too, I was very quiet. That was good enough for me. Right. So the events happened. It was a wonderful event, a very very wonderful event. I was friendly enough, like I had a lot of conversations and stuff, and people collected my number. I didn't collect people's numbers because I'm not, if you know me, I don't actually chat or text. It's a serious weakness for me, except like I'm asking you about something very specific. And to be honest, I just wasn't in the mood. All these things I'm saying are just excuses. I just wasn't in the mood to be honest. So when the event was done, I was going outside to just go and meet people I had met. I was with the volunteers meeting, like, because at least I knew them, right? They were not straight faces. I was walking out, then I saw my husband. I think it was with some people. Then he calls out to me when I think those people had left and he was alone, and he says, hi Ore, like, how are you, how was the event? I said, oh, it was not bad, blah. He said, oh, did I collect anybody's number? And I was like, oh no. And he said, oh, why? I can never forget that conversation. And he said, oh, why? And I said, nothing, I just wasn't impressed. Or more, it took my response as if challenge accepted. He just said, you what? Oh yeah, bring your number. Collected my number, asked me to save his number. Like it's not. Is it an insult to you? Like, why is it? The fact that I said I'm not impressed, I was not impressed. Like, it's not a lot of people that even came for the event don't attend the church. Like, why should you take it as a responsibility to defend the honor of it? Do you understand? Like, anyways, I thought it was funny. It is funny, but I thought it was very funny. And so I just gave him the number. When it was like maybe 9, 10ish later in the night, when all of us that were left behind were preparing to leave the service, when I was someone else had volunteered to drop me at home with a couple of us. And here comes, so he walked up to me, Cotton walks up to me and says, oh, should I drop you, can I drop you at home? He was dropping like 4, 5, 6 people that were already with him. I could actually see those people waiting by the gate of the church. And I was like, oh, can I drop you? I was like, oh no, don't worry, your car is already. He's like, no, 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 I can definitely drop you. I was like, nah. So when I got home that night, I got a call from him. He was calling to tell me that he had gotten home. And I was like, what? Why is that my business? To be honest, I was genuinely confused. I was like, wait, so you're this friendly? Do you understand? Because like I said, after like I served under him for hours and he wasn't trying to make any small talk. So I just thought, oh, this is a nice guy, he's friendly, but he's not friendly when he's serious. So the fact that he called me to tell me that I got home, I still asked him, like, why did you do that? That's so weird to me. It's not like we were chummy or something. He just collected my number. You get? It's not like we had even spoken. Apart from his name, I didn't know anything else about him. He even knew more about me than I didn't know anything else about him, to be honest. Apart from the name he told me, that is, because that was not actually his real name or his first name, but we'll get to that later. So, anyways, when they called me, I just thought, okay, and I try not to hurt people's feelings. So I was like, okay, no problem. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, bye. And I hung up. The next day, he starts chatting me up, and I mentioned that I don't chat, right? Yeah, I actually do not chat, except you are my core family member, or I'm in love with you, or I'm talking to you about something directly. Not, I don't just chat, right? No, I don't do that. But he was doing a lot of all this, how are you type of chat, and I was like, remember the headspace I was in? Yeah, really I was not I was not really in the mood for over friendliness, to be honest. Especially like I was like, nah, like miss me with that. But what I noticed was that there was something there was something very there was some aura around even our conversations around him. They just kept pulling me. It felt like a big brother to me, to be honest. Like I just always wanted to talk to him, and he's very wise, very funny. So it was also very easy. And even when I didn't want to talk, he would call. Like I would take breaks at work to speak to him, and to be like extended periods of time, which for me at that time was a big deal. And so like we were just always talking, and days went by, weeks started to go by, when I realized that, wait, what's happening? Like it's like there's something about this person that just keeps pulling me. Do you understand? Like it was not even mushy or, oh my god, I really like you. I mentioned the headspace I was in for a reason. Like I was not remotely in that space. Do you understand? So I just felt like what is it? Like I can't explain. There's just something something that makes me always want to talk to him. There's just something, there's a kind of joy that I feel around speaking with him and talking to him. And like there was just something, there was just this aura, this joy, and it was increasing the more we spoke. And it wasn't between it was not even remotely oh my god, it was not anything mushy or just felt like, oh, what is this experience? Do you understand? So one day we were chatting, and he goes on to ask me my he goes on to try and guess my age. And I told him to guess. He guessed a little bit older than I actually was, and I laughed about it. Then he told me to guess his own age. And for some reason, I guessed the exact age that I wanted, that I told God I wanted my husband to be. So there were three things that were non-spiritual that I wanted in my husband. I wanted him to not be from my tribe. Nothing against my tribe. It was just a personal thing for me. I wanted him to not be from my tribe. I wanted him to be a certain age, and I wanted him to work in a certain industry. And then I wanted, like, when we actually started talking about whether a relationship, one of the first things they would bring up would be marriage. I didn't want to date for long at all. I didn't have that time in my body, soul, and spirit. Not even time like biological clock. I just meant like I was not in the mood to be someone's girlfriend for long. I done it, been there, done that. I didn't have that. Like, no, I'm not doing this. If I believe you are God's will and we are both believers, and we are friends, and we're willing to work out our marriage with fear and trembling and everything. I didn't believe in dating for an extended amount of years. Do you understand? I just wanted about a year. Not that I even wanted shorter than me. Anyways, so I just guessed, like I said, I guessed the age, and it was exactly the age that, or it was close to, 2 years the age, or it was in the age range. Because I think by the time we married, it was the exact age I had prayed for. So I think it was like 2 years the age or something, like birthday was coming up. It was very close to the age or something like that. So that was something that got my attention, but to be honest, I didn't think much of it. Now, another thing that I wanted to mention is that weeks before I met Kuton, I had gotten to Lagos, but it was just a few weeks before I met him. God told me, the Lord revealed to me that my husband's first name will start with a K. Now, remember that I mentioned that the name he introduced himself to me with was not his first name. The name a lot of people called him was not his first name. So it was also something that was there subtly for me when I noticed that, oh, there was just something in the atmosphere about him. I just felt like, oh, it wasn't even something I told people, because things like that, I like Mary, I like to keep it, until maybe much later, maybe when it has been manifested and stuff. So I didn't really tell people that, oh, God said my husband's name will start with a K. It's not something I don't like to spook people, to be honest. So I also didn't know any K's. I need to point out. In fact, when I heard K, the first thing that came to my mind was the caller, and I was like, ah, God, but I don't want to marry someone from my tribe. But anyways, your will above. Do you understand? I actually thought to be like a caller or a Kunle. Those are the kind of K's I knew. I didn't know about Kuton's tribe. I didn't know about his name. Do you understand? I never met anybody from his tribe until him, to be honest. So when I noticed that there was a lot, there was a lot in the atmosphere of our conversations and our being around each other, I started to feel like I was just in my mind. I was filtering it with, his name doesn't start with a K. There's God has told me his name will start with a K. His name doesn't start with a K, so there's nothing. There's nothing, like I didn't have anything to pray about then. So one day, I was chatting with I saw one of my friends after a long while, and we were talking, and so we are just giving each other updates, and I told her, oh, there's this person I've been talking to for a while, and this is this and this is this, and he was about the age that I had believed the Lord would be my. It's not even something that I even thought God would want, to be honest. It's just, oh, a peculiarity that I just me. Do you understand? He was the age, he was from a different tribe, and he was working in the industry that I desired. So I told my friend, as I told her, she just said, this person sounds like your person. Oh." That's literally what she said. And I was like, eh. She was like, yes, now I don't know why. Maybe because of the K thing, which I don't think I had told her, and I didn't really tell anybody. So it was also, so she didn't have the filter that I had. Do you understand? And there were so many things, and she was like, oh, I think you should take time out to pray about this thing. I was like, I didn't want to tell her, oh, I don't think there's anything to pray about, because this doesn't start with a K. Do you understand? But I just said, okay, no problem. But somehow, what she said really convicted me. To be honest, it's not even something I can explain. It convicted me very deeply. On a normal day, almost instinctive for me to say, oh, I'm going to see God's face about this thing. As I started to go in my walk with the Lord, it was almost instinctive for me. But because of that name thing, I just felt like, there's nothing to pray about. But when she said it, it convicted me very deeply. And I was like, is it possible there's something to pray about here? Do you understand? So because of what my friend said and how much it convicted me, I decided to actually pray about Kutum. So I reduced the frequency and depth of our conversations for a period of time. And I didn't tell him. It's not like I said, oh, I'm going to reduce the frequency and depth of our conversation now. That's not what I did. I just reduced it, and I took some time off to fast and pray about it. I actually decided to do that I took it very seriously, because I wanted to know what exactly the Lord was saying about this friendship. Is it a divine friendship? Does he have a significant role to play in my life, or do I have a role to play in his life? Or is it much deeper than that? I genuinely didn't think it was husband or married, but I knew that there was something very deep that I could not articulate that was going on. And like I mentioned, the filter of the name, is the name that he gave me, not starting with K. And there was no way I could know that was not his first name, right? So I just thought, let me just pray, let me, dig a little deeper in the place of prayer. So like I said, I took some time off. conversations. I didn't take time off completely. I didn't yank it off. I just reduced the intensity basically and the frequency, and I just took some time to pray and fast. Right, I actually did, and while praying and fasting, during that period of praying and fasting, the Lord spoke very clearly to me. It led me to go back to the book of Numbers just like 2 months before that time. God led me to study the book of Numbers, which, to be honest, I didn't want to, but it was something that God just told me to do, and I actually studied it. It was against, I had so many other more exciting, in quote, books to study, but that's what God told me to study. So when I was praying and seeking God's face about what is this, what is going on, what are you saying, Lord? God told me to go back to the book of Numbers. And I was like, what? You want to talk to me about a man with numbers, not Romans, not Corinthians, not something in the New Testament, not even, First Kings or something, numbers. I just thought, oh, this is interesting. And God told me to go to the book of Numbers. He told me the exact chapter and the verse to read. And as I did, the Lord confirmed very clearly to me. The Lord spoke very clearly to me that Koton was my husband, and he told me why. Even though he explained more than I even sought him for. And then when I was like, oh my God. It was like, oh my God. You were like, what? It was like, oh my God. I didn't even know. It was like they poured cold water on me and woke me up. I'm not joking. I think I even described it like that to my friend when I was explaining. I was like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, this is the person? And I was like, no. Wait. What about the fact that you said his name is going to start with a K? Right? Like, like his name doesn't start with a K. And the Lord instructed me to go and ask him for his first name. I can never forget. I can never forget. God told me to go and ask on his first name. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm going to what? Walk up to him and say, by the way, the name you gave me is not your real name. What's your? I'm not going to do that. Like, it's going to. I'm so wacko. He probably already likes me. So you think, this girl. Let me just run away now. She's a crazy person. I'm not going to do that. But the Lord instructed me clearly to go and ask him for his first name. I remember that reduced the intensity and depth and the frequency of our conversation. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to, after not speaking properly for a while and not responding the way I used to, I'm just going to start conversation with, what's your first name? And so I prayed for wisdom on how to go about it. And because it was not even something that when you've been given a clue to something, maybe you had said something or someone had said something, there was nothing like that. Do you understand? I just felt like, oh, I can't go and say, oh, God said that's my first name. I'm not going to do that. So I needed wisdom, right? So I received wisdom from the Lord, and on the following Wednesday, that was about 3 or 4, I can't remember, but the following Wednesday, because it was midweek service, that's why I even remember it's Wednesday. The following Wednesday, I had resumed our conversations. But I was not yet overly friendly, or even more friendly than I used to be, because the name thing was still I was really wondering, where's God going with this. Like, I've not even, like, I'm on one hand I'm like, oh, the fact that my husband explains what I've been feeling around him, but I still need more confirmation and all these things. I'm not just going to, do you understand? And so when I resumed our conversations, I'm still just as excited as the first time. Sorry. So when I resumed our conversations, I said, "Oh, we should see on Wednesday." Or he brought it up. I can't remember, but he's the one that used to bring it up. So he probably did, or I did. I don't know, but I know that there was a plan to see after church. And on Wednesday, after the midweek service, as I was walking out, I saw him actually waiting at the door of church, waiting for me. Or at least he was waiting. I don't know if he was waiting for me, but he was waiting. And we were planning to see, so I choose to believe he was waiting for me. And then I walked up to him and we talked a bit. That day was as if I was seeing him very differently, honestly, because of what God had said. Well, there was no way for the life of me I was ever going to say anything. And then as we were talking, I just said, is this name that you told me, is that your first name? When you're asking something, but inside, you're like, hey, God, don't let this person think. And on one hand, I was like, I don't think I'm a crazy person. On the other hand, I'm like, I really want to know. I really wanted to know, like, I knew God does not lie, but I just thought, and I just said, oh, is that your first name? And he smiles and he says, no. I say, hell! I didn't say it out loud because, again, I was very composed. I didn't want to give him, I didn't want him to know I had taken time off to fast and pray about it. I didn't want him to know I was even thinking about him in any way, let alone praying about him. I didn't want him to know what God said. More importantly, I didn't want him to know that God told me he was my husband. There was no way I was going to do anything that I would look back and feel like I manipulated. Never. So I didn't want to react in a way that would spark his curiosity. Do you understand? So on the inside of me, I was like, hell, that's not his first name. Or on the outside, I was like, eh. He actually asked me for a long time why I asked or how I knew or something like that. I think I just told him, I just had a nudge or something like that to ask. I can't remember. He was looking at me like, oh, this girl is so spirit filled. He didn't know why exactly I was asking. So and I said, okay, so what's your first name? And he now goes, Koto. Number one, I never even heard that name in my entire life. Number two, I was like, can you spell it? Because Koto, when they say it's CH, I was like, can you spell it? And he goes, K. All I needed to hear was the K. He says K. Oh, I say, hell on the side of me again. Because I don't even know the amount of restraint. Man, it could have only been God. You cannot imagine what I was like, hell God, I'm not crazy. There's no way I could have known. And he really goes. So my question was, why don't you tell people that that's your first name? That was even, like, instinctively. That was like, and he goes, oh, because the meaning of my actual name is this name that I tell people. But a lot of people, he was surrounded by a lot of us like Yoruba and people from other tribes. And he said a lot of us usually spoil it, the pronunciation. And he was tired of explaining. So he just tells people the meaning of his name as his first name. And I'm like, wow. And he goes, how can you go? And I was like, oh, I think I just had a note, something like that. I can never forget. That night, I can never, it's as if he was on it, me, I was like, what? And so there were so many things going on in my head. Of course, my journal was filled. I was like, what? What is going on? And my mom was like, okay, you asked for a dove. Is this dove enough for you? Man, I can never forget. So I was like, okay, God, I still want God's coconut head. I think it's a good thing, to be honest, to double check when it comes to marriage. But hey, that's just me. And I prayed for some more confirmation, and the Lord gave it to me. And from that moment on, I'm sure you even noticed, just didn't say anything because very wise. I was just more friendly and more open. I had made up my mind that there's no way under heaven that I would ever bring it up, no matter how long it took for him to ask me out. Like, I would never say, oh, God said you're my husband. I had proposed in my head I was not going to do that. I just didn't know how long it would take, but I had made up my mind that at least I shall knew the person now. Abi? A person is even interested. At least I knew. You know when somebody is interested in, the person is interested. I'm the one that was, giving myself in graduated portions. But after I knew, I was, I was very friendly, very nice. I was checking up on him. Things I didn't do if I didn't initiate conversations before, because I really didn't want to be in deep emotionally before I knew what God wanted. And so so many things happened that were, and every time I just look at him, so many things were going like, wow, really? And so many things, and it explained, the aura I always felt around him, the things I could not articulate, but I knew, and so one day he finally asked me out on with that his wonderful voice. His voice was one of the things I used to like chai and his eyes. So anyways, so one day he now it's interesting now, as much as I was trying not to, when you're trying not to look at someone, like when you're trying not to pay attention to someone so that you don't like them. It's interesting how his voice and his eyes still always got mad. Like, I would just start and I would just be something. It was not even, oh my God, it was just something. Anyways, I digress. So Isha asked me out on the first date. And he asked me out officially. He was going to come and pick me up at 5 p.m. that Friday night, and we'd go out, blah, blah, blah. He gave me a list of, we had this list of things he wanted us to do, but he gave me a list and I chose where we should go and stuff like that. And he was supposed to come and pick me up at 5. But because I already knew that this person that's coming to pick me is not, because I had gone on dates, do you understand, where I barely put in effort. But because I knew this was not just some man coming to pick me, I actually put in a lot of effort. I went to make my hair. I'm not a fan of frontals. That's the hairstyle I went to do. I went to buy clothes. I didn't buy shoe, but I wore a nice shoe. I did my makeup more than I probably typically would have, and because of all this my hair took the longest. I was sure like 45 minutes when you came to pick me, and I was not yet ready, sha. Until I think we went out at 6. That date was supposed to be like a 2 3 hour, it was our official first date. We have been talking for a while. It was our official first date. Man, I have never been in a more perfect situation in my life when it comes to going out with somebody. It was, and because I also didn't want to dabble and say anything that can insinuate the way I was looking at him, like I knew you're my husband, because I didn't want to say anything, I was not initiating conversations, I was not prompting anything. I genuinely just wanted him to prompt, and everything I would have prompted, he prompted even more. In fact, talked about, it was as if that day did not finish till like 1 p.m. I think he dropped me off like 1:30 a.m. It was phenomenal. It was, my God, this one, a real bone of bone flesh. It was, it's like Jesus. And I could not now explain it because I didn't want to also talk too much and jabber and tell him, hey, God told me this, and this is the scripture, and this is my journal, and this is when God said this, and this is what God confirmed. I didn't want to do anything like that. So I was also, when you're excited, but you have to be calm. And so the date was also, Cotton is very straightforward. He was very straightforward about how he felt about the date. In fact, from that first day, talked about marriage, talked about many things, and he didn't ask me out. So it's not like he asked me out for even the first date. So it's very straightforward. Do you understand? And I loved it. Because that's what I wanted. I loved it. By the second date, we did something else that was more, physically. It was more, physically interesting per se. That the first date was proper dinner, and I actually thought it would bring up us dating. Then it didn't. So a part of me was already like, I don't know how long he has. I knew he wanted to date me. I knew he liked me. I knew he wanted to be with me. I knew he wanted to marry me. I had no idea what was going on in his mind. I had no idea the conversations he was having with God. I had no idea. Do you understand? I knew a lot of where it was coming from. We had talked about a lot of things, about each other, about our past, and many things. So I had a very decent idea, but I didn't know, you know, when he was actually going to ask me out. And I was determined to not bring it up under any circumstance, or to say, oh, ask me out now. Or, can't you see me? Do you understand? So by the second day when he didn't ask me out, I just said, okay, whenever he does, I'm not desperate. And I'm not desperate for a time. Do you understand? It's not like I'm even old or anything like that. Do you understand? And I was just happy to know. When like I was just happy to know. I was also overwhelmed with the mercy of God, because there were many things that God did not have to honor, that I don't think they have any. They might, and I know in part now, but I don't think the age, the industry, and the tribe, those three things that were just things that I really desired. They did not have any spiritual, they were not deep spiritual things or anything. The fact that God honored even those things, for me, is just because I just feel like, oh, like it didn't have to. I was already genuinely sold out to whoever God says is God's will, like even if it doesn't meet certain things. Do you understand? But the fact that God knows these things just really reminded me about the kindness, and it overwhelmed me with the mercy of God. For a long time, I just felt like, wow, God, and the way because God knew where I was coming from emotionally, God made sure that I was. For a lot of people, they may not need the kind of, um, confirmation, and they may not need as much, clarity and everything as I do to know. But for me, because of where I was coming from, and God knew, like I said it clearly, God, if it is not clear as day, if it's not something I can, in fact, I remember I say, if it's not something I cannot deny, like his name, for example. And that when the Lord told me his name would start to care, I already knew that, oh, okay, except, this, like, it's not, there are some things that, I just wanted for my own self, because I wanted, the most important thing to me in life, in any area of my life, is to be in the will of God, no matter what anybody says. That's the most important thing to me. So the fact that God chose to, meet me where I was, He knew how much I wanted to be. I was a Gideon. I wanted confirmation and confirmation. And the fact that God chose to confirm that in more ways than I've even mentioned, I'm genuinely grateful to God because I'm not oblivious to how deep marriage is and how life-changing it can be, both good and bad, and um how many challenges can come up that you did not even think can ever happen to you. And the most important thing for me was to know that at least I am sure that this is God's will, no matter. Like, that's what I want in everything, and that's what I wanted then. So the fact that God chose to honor all that, and I'm just really grateful for the mercy of God. And if you are like me, if maybe you've had some bad experiences, you just got into a place where you're like, God, like, no matter what, I never, like, the most important thing to me is to, not make a mistake when it comes to choosing this person. I just want to encourage you that beyond even what you desire, God is willing to go over and above. God is willing to do what it takes to make sure that you are convinced about His will. And I know that a lot of people don't believe in confirmation, but I do. I'm one of the people. I hear many people say they don't believe in confirmation, but I do. I'm not just about marriage, about anything. I believe in confirmation because God knows that sometimes we need confirmation. He knows how weak we are as human beings. He knows how sometimes we are not sure about. Like, I don't believe in not seeking confirmation. That's just me. That's what I genuinely believe, to be honest. And so if you need confirmation, ask the Lord for it. If there's stuff going on in an area and you are not sure, or you've heard God in something but you want to be double sure, I genuinely encourage you to ask the Lord for it, honestly. And I also want to encourage anybody who feels like maybe they've made so many mistakes and they deserve whatever is coming to them or whatever is going to come. The mercy of God is new every morning. It means that it is refreshed on your behalf. All you need to do in areas you need to repent, just repent. Turn away from whatever it is you need to turn away from, and ask the Lord for strength. I always say this thing, that it is God that gives us strength. I'm very sure that even the desire, the determination I had to not marry anybody outside God's will is not in my power. Because I mentioned the time I wanted to say yes to somebody, but my spirit brought no out of my mouth. That's not me. I choose to believe it is the Holy Spirit that's working me, not me. And there are many times when I could have, deviated or something, or even when I left the church that was wonderful for a different church. Do you understand? There are times I could have used my brain and intellect and everything to explain certain things, but it is God at work in us that helps us to do what pleases Him. That is what the Bible says. And so if you feel like, maybe you are not even there, you don't care enough about the will of God, you can ask God for the kind of heart that does. You can ask Him to give you the kind of desire that pleases Him. You can ask Him to help you want Him and help you want to please Him. God is more kind than the kindest person you know. He's willing to go all out to help us live the kind of life that will make Him happy, and that beyond making us happy will make us holy and fill our lives with joy, honestly. And so I just felt like deviating of the story to just say that if you feel like you've been dealt a bad hand when it comes to relationships, please know that with God there's always restoration. No matter how far you've gone, or how many mistakes, or how many frogs you've kissed, or how many frogs have kissed you. Do you understand? God is able to turn things around and to, allay your fears and to give you reminders that He does see you and that He does care about you and that He does love you. I don't know who that is for, but I just genuinely felt a strong nudge to just go off what I was saying, the story. And the essence of even this story, because Lord knows, I didn't want to come on here and share the story. It's just not something I felt like doing. But I was deeply convicted about it. And I genuinely hope that some part of it encourages some part of you, and that some part of it may not even be about relationship or marriage or anything. I just hope that some part of it, does whatever the Lord wants it to do in you, in your own story, for someone in your heart, in any way. I just hope that some part of it helps you some way, somehow. I don't know. That's what I just genuinely desire, to be honest. And so, ending my story, I'm going to say that, so when I've not mentioned when he actually asked me out. So when I made up my mind that, whenever he asks me out is whenever he asks me out, do you understand? I was already doing what God told me to do part-time, work in progress and other things, and just spending time with the Lord. None of that, in fact, it's a funny thing. These encounters amplified it, to be honest. And so, of course, I just continued doing that. I continued doing whatever I believe the Lord wanted me to do. And then by the third date, interestingly, Koto now does this very cute thing, and then um this very cute date, he planned this very cute date, I mean, and then he asked me to be his girlfriend. And then of course, girlfriend with um the intention was married, and that was even clear from our faces, like I mentioned. Even it was something, I don't think we ever even spoke more of boyfriend girlfriend. It was always very clear from the, and that was what I didn't, like I said, I was not looking to be anybody's girlfriend. Been there, done that. Like for me, the most important thing is is this the will of God, and I'm planning to get married, and I'm willing to put in the work. That's the most important thing to me, honestly. And so I remember when it was crossover night in 2020. Um, I just when entering into 2020, this was 2019, entering into 2020, I genuinely just desired to marry in 2020. I didn't have any, it was not a age thing. No, it wasn't a biological clock. It was just something I had desired. Like I mentioned, I always loved the idea of marriage, and I was not oblivious to the temptations that can come with extended dating, like for years, for 2 years, 3 years. So it was just something I desired, to be honest. I probably mentioned it to God. I can't remember how. Probably he even wanted to do it for 6 months. To be honest, he wanted to do it for 6 months. I don't know. I wanted to do it for a bit longer, to be honest. But I just, it was just something I desired, and so I told God about it, and it was just something. And then when we went for crossover service, um, our Pastor Godman, he prophesied in a very, there's prophecy that you know is generic, but there's prophecy that you know that this one is for you. And I journal almost every day. I have different journals for different things. I think it was my prophecy book that was with me, my word on the good journal, and then I wrote it down. It prophesied something very specific about marriage in 2020 for a person, for a lady, and I wrote it down. But that was December. How many days are there? Today's September. I think December is 31 days. December 31, sha. So by at that time we didn't know there was going to be a lockdown. So I entered 2020 knowing deep in me that I was going to get married in 2020, but not knowing when. But I just knew it's this year. But by March or so, when there was lockdown and everything, I thought it was going to. And then I started seeing by like April, May, people were doing lockdown weddings. I knew there was no way that I would do a lockdown wedding. The chance, not that there was no way, but the chances were very slim because of the family I'm coming from. I was not foolish. I even tried to be foolish. I think, I could, but no, it's not the most likely thing that I would have had a very intimate lockdown wedding, even though I wanted it, right? And I remember thinking that, I think this was I can't remember when people started doing lockdown weddings, but it was before my birthday. My birthday is April 13th, but it was before my birthday at this point. And I was just like, I started mentally just thinking, I doubt we can marry this year again, that kind of thing. So it was just one of those things that I just genuinely just thought, this one is not going to happen. Yes, I had the prophecy from the Lord, and it was also my desire, but I just thought it wasn't going to, like, I can't see how that will happen. Do you understand? And then on my birthday, the Lord now gave a promise to us that we would marry in 2020. I remember that it sparked up a lot of joy in me, but I didn't see how. It sparked up a lot of joy in us, to be honest, because I remember the conversation we had about it, but we didn't see how, right? But to the glory of God, fast forward to August 2020, we got engaged. By engaged, first one because our entire relationship was engagement, but we got engaged, engaged with a ring now, August 7. And that was after, he had officially spent time with my family, my father, and I'd given him, in fact, when my father, that's such a beautiful story, when my father saw him. So anyways, maybe I should do a story of our proposal, because it was not the proposal that was a surprise. There were so many things around it, to be honest, and I was just screaming. But that's a different story, probably a different video. And and then we did introduction, and by the mercy of, we did introduction like 2 months after the official ring thing, proposal, whatever. And then by December, to the glory of God, we got married. So yeah, that's December of 2020, just as the Lord had said. So yeah, that's our story. That story of how I met my husband, how I knew it was one, and how I knew it was my husband before he even asked me to be his girlfriend, and the restraint it took to keep my mouth shut about it, and eventually how we got married. So I'm grateful to God for the story. I really pray that one part or the other of it encourages your journey, and it also reminds each and every one of us that even in the seemingly mundane instructions, God is not random. He gives us instructions. We may not have an idea why God is saying leave this for this or do this for this, but with God, nothing is random. If we commit to Him, if we respond to the leading of His Spirit, we'll find out in hindsight that a lot of things, precepts upon precepts, were all parts of a bigger story that we could have never imagined. So yeah, I would just like to share this story. I don't know why, but I really pray that a part of it blesses you. Thank you so much for watching to this point. I think this is a very long, very, very long video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video. Please drop a comment. Please share it on your social media platforms. Please watch previous videos. And please subscribe. Why would you watch a video this long to this point and not subscribe? Please. If I knew that you won't see me, I would have knelt down. I would be like below. So please subscribe. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.